Mic check, mic check.
Mic check, mic.
I think you're still. Oh, there you are.
Mic check,
Microphone
mic check.
checking.
Okay.
We're checking our microphones. Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hey, y'all.
Welcome. We are gonna make an episode called
Yes.
Ask Me Anything.
Woo.
The deal is that we are both hosts. We're both podcasters. We're both Black, and we're both artists. So we got a lot in common.
A lot.
I feel like we're always in a position of being very curious with other people.
Well, you wanted to interview me, and I was like, absolutely not.
I want to interview you.
I want to interview you because I'm also very curious about you. So we're gonna be asking each other questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about that part, but I'm ready for it. So,
Okay.
welcome to Ask Me Anything. From Vermont Public, this is Homegoings. I'm Myra Flynn. Today on the show, we're featuring a conversation between me and Saidu Tejan-Thomas Jr. If you're a regular listener, a Homegoings homie, then you might recognize his name from our credits. He's been our editor for season 2. He's helped to shape this whole thing and also make it awesome.
I'm so happy to finally be on, man. I've been such a fan.
Thank you. Beyond being our editor, Said is also a fellow podcaster, a poet, an artist. He does pretty much all the things. And back in January, Said and I sat down in front of a live audience at Vermont Public Studios to practice what we do best here on Homegoings. We had a very candid conversation. We then turned that night into a 2-part video series. And today, we're sharing it with you as a podcast. One night was so fruitful. Together, he and I talked about what it feels like to be Black podcasters in a post-Floyd era.
Everyone was sort of scrambling for the opportunity to be on the right side of history.
A lot of guilt podcasts out there.
Right.
We also talked about the differences in Blackness, both in America and in Sierra Leone, where Said is from.
I loved every second of growing up in Sierra Leone, except for, the war times. And even those somehow were like magical somehow.
And at the end of this episode, we'll get to hear a deep listen to Said's original poetry about his complex relationship with the city he lives in.
How you tunnel through the city 5 days a week to hunch over a desk downtown, just knowing that everything you want is in one of them buildings, just sitting on the other side of a white man's yes.
This is Homegoings, and this is an episode we're calling Ask Me Anything. Is it really anything?
Anything.
Anything.
It's anything.
Does anything mean everything? We're a proud member of the NPR network. Welcome home.
Hi, I want to tell you about a new series called Reimagining Democracy for a Good Life with me, Angela Glover Blackwell. In it, I turn to organizers and leaders doing work on the ground in Los Angeles to see how they're trying to build a radically inclusive, thriving, multiracial democracy that serves everyone. I believe that is the key to human flourishing. Lessons from LA can inform a vision for the nation. Find Reimagining Democracy for a Good Life now wherever you get your podcasts.
Said has, your resume is insane. He's a host, he's a podcaster, and has had a show called Resistance that was on Spotify and Gimlet. Did you win a Peabody?
Yeah. Thank you.
You came here when you were 8 from Sierra Leone?
Yeah, I was 8 years old, lived in Virginia, in Northern Virginia. That's where I grew up and went to school in Richmond, Virginia, down south, and then moved to New York about 2017, 2018.
You're 30.
31 now.
You're 31 since last night?
Did I tell you I was 30 last night?
Yes. Happy birthday? What? What's happening?
No, I'm a Sagittarius, so my birthday was in December.
Oh.
Yeah, it was December 8th. And
okay.
You know that thing that happens when you turn an age, but you don't quite feel it yet?
I mean, I know that you do. Yeah.
That's how I feel. I feel like I always say, like, I have to constantly remind myself that I'm 31 now, which is such a weird age. But yeah, I'm 31.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're just a baby.
Yeah.
That's so good.
I feel like an old man.
Well, you have a Peabody. You should. You definitely should. Nobody gets that for doing anything light. So I'd asked you at right when we sat down, if you knew what a homegoing was.
Yeah.
It sounds like maybe.
Maybe, yeah, because it's one of those words that I feel like I just used context clues to figure out what it was, but I didn't quite know. I thought it was like a sort of kind of celebration or something after being away from home for a long time and returning and being given that celebration, yeah.
Those of us who know what a homegoing is he close?
Damn, what the? Not the collective,
Yeah, so homegoing is a traditional Black Christian funeral that is super celebratory. I mean, besides the dead body in the middle of the room,
right?
Everybody's pretty much eating great food and singing and dancing, and it's a celebration. And I've always thought that was a really appropriate way to talk about how it feels to walk around being Black-bodied, like regularly.
Yeah.
Like you're both like celebrating and mourning.
Right.
Always.
That's a bar. That's a bar.
Listen.
Yeah.
I feel like the show, like, it's those goals. And like, I think some people will be like, why did you name it after a funeral? And I'm like, no, it's deeper than that.
It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
Deeper than rap. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
I totally identify with that because I feel like I am that all the time. Like you see me at a party, I'm lit. I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
But when I sit down to write, oftentimes it's very reflective, very sad, very like I'm memorializing things. And I think that is also a representation of like, yeah, what is the Black experience? Like you are holding those two things at the same time.
Always.
Always.
Even when you're smiling.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off with the Ask Me Anything questions. Is it really anything?
Anything.
Anything.
It's anything.
Does anything mean everything?
I mean, you can ask anything. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to get an answer to everything, but you can ask me anything.
All right. Oh, Lord.
I'm very eager to ask you my questions.
Oh, my
For us to
gosh.
Okay. Play the game.
Yes. Let's play the game.
Have you guys ever played Would You Rather? Yeah, look, somebody was like, you knew we was about to play that game.
Like every day.
We're gonna play Would You Rather, and what the game is essentially is like I ask her sort of lightning round a bunch of questions, and she has to answer like very quickly. She can't think. Like for example, would you rather New Balance shoes or Chuck Taylors? That's a softball version of the game.
Oh God.
And she has to immediately like answer the question, and she's gonna have 30 seconds to do it, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be really fun.
Oh Lord.
Okay. All right, go. Telekinesis or telepathy?
Telepathy.
Okay. Finish a bad book or never have time to finish a good one?
Finish a bad book.
Be an African queen 1,000 years ago or an average person in the year 3000?
African queen.
Co-host a nationally syndicated radio show with your nemesis or make music that no one listens to?
Music nobody listens to. Okay. Nobody needs that. Okay.
Apple pie crust or peach cobbler?
Apple podcast or peach cobbler?
Apple pie.
Oh.
Damn, that's it?
I told you 30 seconds was really quick.
You were right. Like, can we do that again?
I told him a minute. He's like, a minute's too long.
Yeah. All right, let's get a minute this time. Let's get a minute. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Fareen.
All right.
All right.
Apple pie crust or peach cobbler?
Thank you for the enunciation, peach cobbler.
A third eye or a third ear?
Ear.
Spend a week in the freezing cold with the blistering heat?
Blistering heat.
Okay. Lose your voice before a big show or be loud as hell and be wrong about something? Time.
Lose your voice before a big show. Yes, lose your voice. Lose your voice. Ay.
Collab with Sade Adu or Beyonce?
Sade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Share an on-screen kiss with Idris Elba or Denzel?
Idris Elba.
Rather be accused of plagiarism or plastic surgery?
Plastic surgery.
Okay. Settle down in Vermont or California? You gotta answer.
Time.
You're a real one. You have a plant in the audience. I should have picked somebody else.
Is it my turn now?
It's your turn, yeah.
Okay, I'm a little slower,
That's fine.
but I'm not as mean.
That's good for me.
All right. Editor or host?
Ooh. Host. I'm a bit narcissistic. Maybe host.
Host, all right. Like a love that's kind of okay or being alone and feeling great?
Oh, God. A love that's kind of okay. Oh, no.
Oh, gosh. All right. Brooklyn or the Bronx?
Brooklyn, absolutely.
All right, calm down. Earrings or necklaces?
Earrings.
Really, really tall socks that are kind of dope and fresh, or really, really low ones that like sit below your ankle?
Really tall socks that are dope or fresh,
Cool.
of course.
Shaving chest hair or leaving it?
Shaving it.
All right. Cocoa butter or Vaseline?
Cocoa butter.
Gold or silver?
Gold. Always.
Pizza or donuts?
Pizza.
Okay.
Pizza.
Is mac and cheese a side or a main dish?
Mac and cheese is a main dish. Yeah. I don't know why I just said that, but yes.
Are you black or are you white?
Race is a social construct.
Lord! No, sir. All right. Do we know each other now?
I think we have, I think we have a good foundation.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's off limits for you today? Like anything you'd like me to stay away from?
No. I mean, I think what's beautiful about this show is that it is so radically honest. And I think that's what I try to do also in my work, is ask that of other people. So I'm always open to asking that of myself and other people doing that, you know?
Okay.
Because I think that's, I like getting in the messy, you know what I'm saying? Like in the actual, just like in the true, messy truth of it all.
Okay.
That's where the gold is. Here's the thing, right? Here's a question that I'm actually trying to ask, because I went through this when I was making Resistance. Mm-hmm. My show is about protesters. It's about people. The tagline is people refusing to accept things as they are. So that lends itself very well to protest, but, you know, we cover other things as well. But I don't think that I would have been able to really make that show the way I was able to make it had a man not been killed on camera in 2020, George Floyd, where everyone was sort of scrambling for the opportunity to have a say in the conversation, to be on the right side of history. And it's not that I don't think that I would have eventually had my own podcast, because
a lot of guilt podcasts out there.
Right, but there was a lot of like sort of like guilt money going around where people wanted to very much seem like they were on the right side of history. And so I'm not quite sure when you started the Homegoings, but I am curious about like how you came to it and if you felt any of that sort of weirdness.
Yeah, I don't know a Black person who, after George Floyd's murder, didn't feel like they were either a prophet or a unicorn.
Damn, that's a bar.
Or still a Negro. You know, it was it was the weirdest thing. George Floyd's murder in Pasadena, California, came with protests that some that were unsafe and some that were very close to our house. And so it was this thing with my husband's Black and being like, I don't even want you to go to the grocery store. And we had a newborn baby. So we, couldn't leave our house because you'd get sick, or you couldn't leave your house because you're afraid to get shot. And then the Bobcat fire started 5 miles from our house. And that was just like creeping down the mountain outside of our house. And it was at that point where I looked at my husband and I was like, we're moving back to Vermont. And I hadn't lived here since, gosh, it had been such a very long time. And my husband hadn't lived here since like junior high or something like that. And so we were like, let's try it. We're going to make it cool. There's other cool stuff happening. Like, well, you know, we're going to be great here. And we came, and it was at that point where I realized, I totally forgot about this kind of racism. It had been a really long time since I felt that, like, I'm a good white person racism. Been a really long time since I'd felt that, like, I have every sign in my yard, but I'll still call the cops on your husband in a dark alleyway at night kind of racism.
Right, yeah.
I remember my husband and I went to the grocery store and some guy came up and he's like, hey, and we're like, hi, like, do we know you? And he was like, how do you all feel about the police?
Oh.
And my husband literally had a baguette in his hand and my daughter in a wagon in the other. And he was just like, dude, I'm just trying to go home and cook dinner with my kid and my wife.
Yeah.
I remember it was the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder. And so there was this mad scramble of like, the anniversary is coming up. What are we going to do? And I remember being like, well, if we're going to do something, we should do a lot of something and not stop doing it.
Right.
And so it was a little bit of like, yeah, black girl, you go ahead, you know, but it was awesome because the show I was on, which only operated on listener questions, said, Myra, you can make a series about black people here. And they gave me the green light under the umbrella of their podcast.
Yeah.
So I called it Homegoings. I lose sleep over the show a lot because of what you're saying, of like the boom bust of the podcast industry, particularly with folks of color.
Yeah.
We were last hired, first fired in many situations. And I don't think I've said this, I am exhausted, you know. I don't know what I'm chipping away at on this show, but it's definitely something toward humanity. And I worry all the time that it's for optics or that it's not real.
Yeah.
Or that I'm not teaching the people who need to be taught, or that the people who don't need to be taught and just want to live life and enjoy it and be black and, you know, live are getting something from that too. It's like doing the splits every day. But then I have like something like this and like the crowd looks like this and I'm like, yeah, we're on to something.
Yeah. We're on the right track.
We're on the right track. I'm not going to let this boom bust.
Yeah.
Just like slowly, steadily chip away at humanizing us.
Whenever something bad happens, then it's like, oh, now we need black voices, you know?
Right.
And it's always temporary.
Yes.
And I'm frustrated with that. And I don't want that to be the case anymore for anybody.
I think when I met you, you said we all saw that window open and we all knew exactly when it was going to start closing.
Oh, absolutely. Because when it was open, it was wide open. It was like I think
you get a car and you get a podcast.
I was like,
I
was legit like, is this what it feels like to be white? Because this is this is great. Like everyone's listening to me. I go to a meeting and my word holds weight.
I know.
And like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm in the room.
Yeah, I can ask for something, and even though there isn't like, you know, even though there's pushback, eventually I can kind of like get it. But at the same time, I was like, oh, this ain't gonna last. Like this ain't gonna last. And so yeah, we were seeing that window closing as it was opening at the same time. This is why I'm also like really interested in a way envious of what you've been able to cultivate, because I feel like in a sense, I kind of gave up, right? I was kind of like, before this window closes on me, I'm just gonna walk out.
Right, because you don't want that pain.
No, I don't want that pain of having felt like I was used. And so to take matters into my own hands, I just kind of ended my own show and walked away.
Do you think we do that as black people? You think we sabotage our own trajectory at times because it's easier than watching somebody else like hurt us in all the ways we're used to being hurt?
I've seen it happen, and I think I've seen it happen in my own life as well. It does. I think we do. And it's because it's painful. It's because you don't want that rejection. I mean, who wants to feel like they are less than? Who wants to feel unwanted? Be in these rooms and just thinking like, oh, maybe I don't deserve to be here because of whatever reason, right? When you're super capable and you have all the skills and you might be even more capable than half the people in the room, but you're doubting yourself because you've learned to doubt yourself to get to where you are. You've learned you've learned to use that doubt. And I've learned to use that doubt, that self-doubt to sort of prove the voice in my head wrong. Right? Like whatever voice was implanted in there, I feel like I'm consistently working to prove it wrong because I have to. Otherwise, I won't get us far, you know? And I think like a lot of Black folks do deal with that. But then I sit in rooms with a lot of white folks and I don't think they've had a doubt a day in their life. And they just are very much like just doing their thing and saying whatever and producing all kinds of work that I'm not impressed by. I don't know. Personally, I try my best to remember that I am African. I try to remember that the people in my family think I'm special, right? I try to remember that I come from a background and a people who, you know, in Sierra Leone, everyone is Black. Like your mailman is Black, the store clerk is Black, the bank teller is Black. It's an affirming experience. So like I come from that kind of stock. I come from the stock of people who know their worth, who know that they're not gonna accept less, who know that they're also hard workers, right? Who know that they're gonna do whatever it takes to get where they need to get. So I try to remember that even in this country where for so long, since the day I stepped off the plane to come to this country, I have felt like, you know, maybe I'm not as good as everyone else here.
What brought you here?
Well, it was war. I remember being really close to my family, sort of huddled up while war was happening outside. I don't even quite remember who was fighting and why they were fighting. I mean, now I do, but at the time I didn't. And when the war ended, my mom had already came to America before the war. The war, I think, was like her motivation, like it put a fire kind of under her ass to like get me over there sooner. Mm-hmm. And so she filed papers for me, and you know, I came over as a refugee. So it was definitely sort of like fleeing instability because we didn't know if the war was going to start again. And yeah, then I went from that environment where I loved it. I loved every second of growing up in Sierra Leone, except for, you know, the war times. And even those somehow were magical somehow. Like everyone in the building we lived in hid in our basement, in like the basement of the house. And we sort of like, we all slept there. Like we all had this little like village in the basement of this house. My sister would cook these big meals and we would all eat together, whispered together while soldiers were passing by so we wouldn't be heard. Like it was a very communal experience, and I enjoyed even every second of that, right? And so yeah, when I came here, in a weird way, it kind of felt like, because I was a child, I think I was able to sort of blank out the war a little bit. But when I came here, it felt like real war.
When we come back, Said and I talk about being African American.
When I started to realize that we were kind of being pitted against each other in this real messed up way, I think that's what radicalized me.
And since Said and I have both lived in New York City at different times, we're going to swap some stories.
And I looked back at her and I was like, stop pushing me. What's wrong with you? Like, stop pushing me. And that's when I realized this city got me messed up. This was my rock bottom. And I had many more rock bottoms like that. And I think that's kind of like a little bit of like what New York can be like.
That's right after this.
Homegoings has support from Rutland Regional Medical Center, where healthcare equity and access are the foundations to a healthy community. Learn more about their services and locations at rrmc.org. And by the Vermont Arts Council, working to center creativity, art, and culture for everyone throughout Vermont. Learn more about programs, resources, and grant opportunities at vermontartscouncil.org.
What kind of dissonance do you feel between being an African man and a Black man in America? Like, what dissonance do you feel with Black American people?
It's so weird being like plucked out of one society and dropped into American race relations, because it's very confusing here, and it takes a long time to learn what the hell is going on and where you fit in all of that. And to me, that felt like one of the biggest crisis of identity that I've ever had to fight in my life. And I feel like it's only now that I think that I've got somewhat of a handle on it. But some days I don't even quite know where I stand. I think when I first came here, I felt a lot of dissonance because I saw Black people and they looked like me, and I thought there would be a kinship there. But little did I know there had been like hundreds of years of Black folks being told that Africans are dirty and disgusting,
starving,
and stupid.
We need to like send money. Like
exactly. So I was sort of getting kind of that treatment from other Black kids my age, because kids are mean. But so I grew up feeling a little bit like separated from Blackness, like American Blackness a lot. But the thing about American Blackness is this shit is undeniable. It's cool as hell. It's rich in history. It's just like I see why white people be copying Black people so much. You know what I'm saying? Like it's undeniable. Like after a while, I think like I saw myself transform into, like as I grew up, I was like, oh, I think I'm identifying more as like a Black person who grew up in this country rather than a person who immigrated to this country. And I think it was only when I like got to like maybe senior of high school and got to college was when I started to like transform a little bit and started to learn about Black American history, the links between the slave trade and not even the links, but like the continuum, the diaspora, right, of Blackness, and how Black Americans, in my mind, are a continuum of the African diaspora, right? When I started to learn more about that and started to realize that, I was kind of just we were kind of being pitted against each other in this real messed up way. I think that's what radicalized me.
Yeah.
I think that's what made me really start to think more broader about like, race and history and things like that. And the dissonance became less and less.
I feel like America wants to do that to you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Come become American, leave all the rest behind. There will be 3 days a year that are appropriate to celebrate where you came from, but for the rest of the time, you're American.
Right.
I mean, I feel like you have a little bit of a homegoing going on inside of you.
Aw, that's so sweet. That's true.
Yeah. The celebration and mourning. And it's really interesting to hear you talk about Sierra Leone as a place that feels very solid in people who know their worth. And also you referenced it as a place of instability. And you talking about sleeping in the basement and whispering when the soldiers go by as like fun. I don't know. My therapist has been telling me recently that I intellectualize everything as a way to not have to feel.
Yeah.
Are you doing that?
Probably. I think yes and no, right? Because I have people in my family who look at me and they're like, we can't believe you made it. Basically, like they're like, you kind of beat a lot of odds, bro. Like there was a lot of things to trip you up, and I can't believe I made it half the time either. Like it's really only like I thank God, honestly, because there's been many moments where I could have been caught in any of the snares that are set for Black folks, and Black people globally, right? Whether that be the war back home, whether that be when I came back here.
The war here.
The war here.
Yeah.
Many traps that I've had friends who've been ensnared in those traps, like really good friends. I think I deal with it totally by intellectualizing it and sort of controlling it. And another way that I found to deal with it is through my art. Writing was a big saving grace for me. And I'm wondering, you've talked to me about this before, about like how at a certain point in your life, your art was very much fueled by your experiences and maybe the things that you were processing. And at some point, that was no longer enough for you. But I want to know about what it was like when it was enough.
A big part of being an artist to me is loving sharing it. That's not like for everyone, you know. Not everybody's a performer. I loved it. And so I just started figuring out ways to kind of create my own avenues of sharing. I don't know. Like,
What did you love about it?
I loved the fitness test. I loved to be like, I think this is cool. Do you? And even if it got rejected, it was like good information, and I'd go back and try again.
Wow.
I just loved it.
Yeah. What I was saying about like coming to poetry and having it be like a way to sort of process my grief, really, is what I was doing, right? I was processing the grief of leaving home. I was processing the grief of losing both my parents, processing the grief of my identity changing so many times. I think what that produced was like a lot of my work was very much sad. Like I was always telling people my work is sad. Like I'm the sad poet. You'll cry or something when you listen to my poetry. And I thought that was cool.
I know this country kills culture and calls it assimilation. And I find it hard to remember home some days. And the closest I've gotten is saying my name in the mirror the right way.
Like I found poetry in college. I had never really written anything except for some like really terrible raps in like middle school. Yeah.
But you are a poet.
Yeah. But like art was a way for me to really start processing. And maybe art in a way has been a measure of control, right? Because it's a way, that's the place where I feel that I can be most vulnerable. Like in my everyday life, it's almost impossible for me. It's really hard. So when I found that in college, I really started to feel like I could like really access some of these things that I've been into and yeah, have control, but also give myself permission to lose control.
I love that for you.
Feel it, yeah. I'm actually very curious about your time in New York. Because that was when you were writing songwriting or when you were part of the label?
Both.
Okay, so give me one of your I love New York moments. It's the best city in the world, whatever. Like, I love it here. And you're freaking hate it here. Like, what the hell am I doing
It
here?
all might be in the same night.
Go ahead.
Because that's New York.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm living in a loft, one of the last lofts that you used to like, the OG lofts.
Let me curl up.
Okay, cool. Curl up for this story. I'm living in a loft that's inside of a packaging company, and it was hilarious. I'm with 6 other male roommates, and the packaging company sprays for cockroaches, but they won't spray our apartment. I don't even think, like, legally we were supposed to be there. And so the cockroaches just come to our apartment to die.
What?
Yeah. So just giving you like a scene. It's like 6 dudes, me, cockroaches. I'm giving piano lessons. There's a cockroach that just like falls on the piano. This kind of light. So it was fun, but gross. I step outside of my loft onto the sidewalk, and this guy is a really tall dude with a curly mullet comes up to me and he goes, "Mary Popoff?" And I'm like, "What?"
What?
I don't know. I didn't know. He was like, "Mary Popoff," like Mary Poppins. Mary Popoff? I was like, "What? No." He's like, "You want to pop off?" I was like, "I don't know. What are you talking about?" Turns out this is a very well-known person's producer. And he's like, do you want to hear some unreleased music at my studio? And I'm like, yes, I do.
What?
I sure do.
You just met this man on the street.
This is where I was at mentally. Do not judge me, okay? So I was like, let's go. And we went and listened to some unreleased records and cuts. And I was like, this is mind-blowing. I was like melting. And he's like, I'm going to take you to this rooftop party with all the rest of these record execs tonight. And this was like my 4th week in New York, right? So it was just like, this is great. So I get a girlfriend of mine to go, because that was as safe as I like knew how to be, right? Even though it was just like 2 young women in a really scary situation. And this party is crazy. There's somebody on a trapeze. There's bubbles everywhere. Nobody was checking IDs. Nobody cared. It was just wild. And then something switched. And that dude, all of a sudden, thought that I was someone else. Like he'd taken a drug or drank something too much or something. And I'm learning through the way that he's screaming at me publicly that he had a biracial ex-girlfriend, and he was, hallucinating and just screaming at me about our relationship.
Oh.
And I would go, walk away, and he would follow. So anyway, I ended up locking myself in the bathroom at this party with him outside, like beating and crying against the door, while my one friend is off, like trying to get 50 more friends to get me out of there. And finally they did it. And I'd leave, and he's clawing at the cab as I'm getting in. And then the cab ran over his foot.
What?
Yes. That was one night. One night.
New York is not a real place.
New York is not a real place.
It's not a real place. What?
Yeah. Sober. Completely sober, by the way.
Wow.
I was. Yeah.
That is New York. That's wilder than any New York I've ever experienced.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Said, you said that you've taken a 6-year break from poetry.
Yeah.
What ignited the fire again, and when?
I mean, I always knew that I wanted to definitely come back and perform again. And I also, because I'm an actor, I was also looking for opportunities to get back on stage. I'm like, I want to get back on stage. And I'm telling everybody this. And this one guy I know, his name is Modesto Flaco Jimenez. He's a Brooklyn poet and actor and activist. He was like, yo, simple, just write a poem and go on stage. Like, you can act. You don't need any permission. Like, you can just do it. You're a writer and you're an actor. You have all the tools. Like, what are you waiting for? And he made it sound so simple. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And he was like, yeah, I'm doing this show where I want to have different poets and artists create art to commemorate hip hop or write an ode to New York City. And I was like, you know what? This is my opportunity, because I work better under deadlines anyway. So sure, like, put me down. I got you. And boy, writing a poem after not writing a poem for a long time is hard. I spent like 3 months writing this poem. I also loved it. I also loved just being a wordsmith again, and also finding ways to incorporate everything that I've gone through in the city and that I felt about the city and my experiences with people. All these things, I felt like I was able to like take what I've learned from audio and storytelling and write a poem that felt like unlike anything that I've ever written before.
That sounds so healing.
Yeah, truly.
Saidu Tejan-Thomas Jr. It's been a delight to hear so much from you and to share so much with you. And as you know, homies, here on the show, we do our best to save time for a deep listen to some art. And let's just say, today's deep listen ain't gonna be me. I've shared enough. So sit back, perhaps close your eyes, and feel free to listen deeply to Said's introduction of his own original poem. I'll let you guess where the talking ends and the poetry starts.
This poem is about New York, and I think this year is going to mark maybe 7 years, I think, since I've been in New York. So like I remember I would get all dressed up for work because I was interning at Gimlet at the time, and then I would go on the train, and I would have my book, and I'd have my little scarf because it was like winter, and I'd sit down and have my headphones in and playing something like really like poppy or whatever, and I'd read my book and I'd think, yeah, like I had main character syndrome. I was like, everyone is paying attention to me right now. Look at me. I'm this transplant. I'm like doing it, and like I'm young, I'm handsome. I'm reading my book, I'm intelligent. Like, look at me. Like I thought I was the main character. And then like fast forward like, a few months, and I'm like doing overnights at the office, and I'm stressed out. The city's really starting to grind me down. And I'm on the same train, and I'm like, I'm wearing my backpack. I'm just wearing my backpack, and this lady behind me, and I didn't know that there's like an unwritten rule in New York that if the train is really packed, you take off your backpack, right? Because it's a lot of bodies, like you want to create space. But I didn't know that, and whatever. Like this lady probably thought I didn't know that either, but too bad for her. She didn't know that I was like so stressed that day. Like I probably had slept in the office. I was like at the end of my wits, like, and so she's pushing my backpack, and she's pushing me, and she's pushing me. And I've never wanted to punch an old black lady. But in that moment, I was like, something in me snapped. And I looked back at her, and I was like, stop pushing me. What's wrong with you? Like, stop pushing me. And that's when I realized this city got me messed up. This was my rock bottom. And I had many more rock bottoms like that. And I think that's kind of like a little bit of like what New York can be like. It is like, you go there not knowing anything. You go there not knowing what's going to happen except for like the dreams you have in your head. And that's because it's a risk. It's a risk you take traveling there without a plan. But, you're 21. You're one of them cocky transplants from a small planet that no one's ever heard of. You're one of them immigrants who crash landed in some cul-de-sac somewhere far, far away from home. And you've been called an alien. In every other solar system, you sought asylum. And you've managed to carve an ID out of Nike SBs and Lupe Fiasco albums. And you're a boy with a name no one would care to pronounce, much less know. But you knew. It was never going to be Miami, LA, Connecticut. Your dreams would only be possible up there in New Metropolis. And sure, there are horror stories of cities like that. The streets occupied by tweaks and suited zombies. The apartments filthy with roommates and rude roaches. The twisted faces marching towards a future that barely pays rent. The overwhelming stench of wealth rising up all around you, and it's all bad gravity up there, they say. And no one understands why you would move to this sunk city, why you would think it possible that you would shine where so many others have failed. But knowing you, animated by doubt, propelled by prove it, maybe it's the African in your blood, maybe it's your gut, but you go. Your voice, a fresh cut, 2 duffel bags, and that smile your mother gave you, it's all you pack. Before takeoff, you whisper a promise to your reflection on the launch pad. I'm gonna take that city. Having no clue what was waiting for you on the other side. And you fly across galaxies for years to get here, and you finally spot New Metropolis on the black horizon. Stiletto skyscrapers posing with their technological face. You glide close to row after row of windows glowing gold like the city's only got eyes for you, and the sight of Metropolis at night is like an answer. It's a yes so dazzling it makes all your red flags disintegrate into rumor. It's the kind of dreamy silhouette that makes you forget sense. The kind of bright magic that turns all men like you into moths. And those lights would look so good on you. And you start thinking to yourself that maybe one day I'll glide across these skies to brunch on Sundays with my besties like Carrie Bradshaw. Or maybe I'll find a stage that loves the color of all my stories like Jerry Seinfeld. Or maybe they'll even learn how to pronounce my name too here. And you're not even asking for it all at once, just a chance to land somewhere, a small place to nest, and enough money in your pocket to keep a baddie's jagged breath pressed against your ear on Friday nights. And oh my God, how good it would have felt to arrive to a big soundtrack like Juicy or something, or Get Money, anything old school and reckless. But what you get is the hissing of sewers, the 3 a.m. sirens, the tin can conductor's voice over speakers, the landlord's knock on the first of the month, and every week your little sister sends you holograms and she's so proud of you for leaving. She thinks the sky of you. And she asks, "Hey, big brother, how is it up there?" And you say, "It's good. It's everything I've ever wanted." And she goes, "It's good. It's everything I've ever wanted." She's like, "Be honest. How is it up there?" Honest. Honest? You would rather write her an ode for this city. Because how are you supposed to tell her about the 6 months of nights you spent on strangers' beds, cramped couches, and dusty attics? How you tunnel through the city 5 days a week to hunch over a desk downtown, just knowing that everything you want is in one of them buildings, just sitting on the other side of a white man's yes? How you supposed to say, "I feel like a glitch in this city, sis. And every time I open my eyes, I want to beg my dreams for forgiveness. And I'm starting to forget what my own voice sounds like. And I'm sorry for everything that I have not brought back home yet." How you supposed to tell her about this one time when you got so stressed out, you buried your head into your backpack and cried on the 2 train. And when you lifted your head up, there were 2 niggas dancing in front of you for change. And all you could do was laugh. How you supposed to say, "I'm sorry, sis, for everything that I have not brought back home yet. And still, I want to stay here, still here, still here, still?" Even on the days the heat sizzles me dizzy with lonely and I get home to sweep my cat and mop my sink and open the medicine cabinet to find something to eat, even when I lose my sense and myself to the rat race here, there are still reasons I stay. And I can almost hear the city laugh when I complain like that, because I know for 1,000 years, it's seen 1,000 of me and it knows exactly who I am. I mean, bless me with rent control and laundry in the basement. Bless me with a roommate who pays her rent on time. Bless me with neighbors who know my name. Miss Shirley, her 98-year-old smile. Bless me with all the moments I linger a while in the hallway because the Caribbean woman next door is cooking something that reminds me so much of my mother's hands on Sundays. And still, every morning I wake up and I stand on the steps of the home the city made for me. And I don't say thank you. I get on the train, I open my book, pretend I'm the main character again. I try not to miss my stop, and I ask for more. Thank you.
Saidu Tejan-Thomas Jr. Thank you for sharing your words, your questions, and your art with us. And also, thanks for being such an amazing editor, homie. Except on this episode, of course. I did that. And thank you so much for listening to Homegoings. It has been a pleasure being here with you. As we mentioned, this episode was recorded at Vermont Public Studios in January in front of a live audience. Maybe you were there. We clearly turned that night into a podcast, but you can also experience the evening as a video. Ask Me Anything is a 2-part video series that you'll find on our website at homegoings.co. Go check it out so you can watch Saidu do his thing. Doing things like this, live and in person, is part of what Homegoings is all about, creating community. If you'd like to attend one of these events, the best way to know about when and where and who we're talking to is to head to our website, again, at homegoings.co, and sign up for our newsletter. You can also find us on Instagram at WeAreHomegoings. Hopefully, we'll see you at the next event. This episode was mixed by our associate producer, James Stewart. I reported this episode and composed our theme music. Other music by Miles Hooper and Blue Dot Sessions. I was the editor on this episode, and Elodie Reed is the graphic artist behind our Homegoings artist portraits. For this episode, Saidu is front and center in front of a galactic representation of the Sierra Leone flag. You have got to see it. In fact, you should check out all of Elodie's portraits at homegoings.co. See you in 2 weeks for another episode that will be the first of a mini-series. I'm sort of sneaking into the second season of Homegoings called Stereo Antitypes. In this series, I chat with folks about the stereotypes they're held to, the ones they buck, and the ones they might even have to admit are true. It's going to be one balancing act in the messy world of bias and accountability. If you have thoughts, reflections, or asks of me as your host about who we should talk to or what we should explore next on the show, write to me at hey@homegoings.co. As always, you are welcome here.
New from the Embedded podcast. Female athletes have always needed grit and talent. But for decades, they've also needed a certificate.
There was chit-chat about, is that really a woman?
And even now, they're still being checked and questioned. Their story is the newest series from CBC and NPR's Embedded. It's called Tested. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.